Trump's sending a message. He does not give a damn about the European Union. They can get blown up and go away. He doesn't care. He's not going to lift a finger to assist the European Union. On a bilateral basis, country to country, yeah, he's going to want to have good relations with the UK, good relations with the French, good relations with the Germans. Frederick Merz can ever get a coalition assembled. Looks like he may have. And he'll deal with Hungary, with Orban. But when push comes to shove, Britain doesn't have the ability to do it. That's why they're coming to the United States. They can't do this without the United States. Both Macron and Starmer deep down recognize that. So they're trying to figure out how to rope the United States in. And Trump ain't not taking the bait. That's Starmer. Yeah, we're gonna put some peacekeeping troops in there, and we're gonna rein in those Russians. With what? You don't have an army. You got some guys and gals wearing a uniform, and they get a monthly paycheck, and they may have some housing supplied courtesy of the British government. But in terms of warfighting machine, forget about it. They've got their units, the elite units, SAS, SBS, the Special Boat Squad. Yeah, they've got some competent people in that, no doubt about it. I suspect the Romanians are going to have some trouble since they are so much in the pocket of the European Union and that they've been so blatant in their authoritarian crackdown on this opposition politician, Georgescu. And because Trump can readily identify with that. And so Romania needs anything. Actually, Romania right now has some negotiating leverage with the United States, or assumes that it does, because the United States is building this big base, military base in Romania, be the largest in Europe. The Romanians say, hey, you do what we want or else. We'll pull out on that. But the problem with that with Trump is he'll probably say, fine, we don't need your damn base. We're done spending the money. We're having to foot the bill to build it anyway. Maybe we don't want to build it. Maybe we'll save that money and go elsewhere. That'll be one of those interesting dynamics in the future. Trump he'll look for friendly relationships. I expect to see Meloni of Italy popping up there sometime soon. Trump does not like the European Union. They sent that clear. You saw what they did to Kaja Kallas. She had apparently made arrangements to meet with Marco Rubio and shows up and he goes, sorry, I can't meet with you. We got scheduling conflicts. He's going after the European Union, but he's participating in Brexit. Let's call it that way. France, love the French, as he said. Oh, Macron, great. Starmer, love Starmer. He doesn't love Starmer. He hates Starmer. Starmer came and campaigned some people to campaign against him. But Trump is playing the politics of this. It's not good. I don't think it would serve his interest to get into a public slugging match with Starmer, or if Starmer had walked in, he just started beating him up, tossed him into the corner, kicked him a couple of times in the head. No, instead, we are great friends. Couldn't be better. Okay? Who came asking for something, and who was the person being asked to do? Well, it was Trump. It wasn't Starmer. Trump wasn't crawling to Starmer and said, boy, Keir, man, I got problems at home, and he's hurting, and I need to get a win. I need to show myself as a big guy. Would you help me look like a big man? They didn't do that. They were the supplicants. They're coming to Trump. Trump's eating that up. Hey, all these guys who diss me, all these guys who said I was a nobody, come here, polish this boot. And listen, Starmer, you can do the left boot, and Macron, you can do the right boot. I'll just sit here and let you do it. That's what's going on. Here's Duda waiting for a meeting with Trump, and he's got him cooling his heels for an hour and a half, 90 minutes, walking around, nervous, sitting. You normally, if you've got a guest waiting, you'd go say, let's provide them with coffee. What could we get you to drink, sir? Set them up so at least they're comfortable. Trump was sending a message. But it was all choreographed and staged. Again, you have to step back and just say, who was the supplicant and who was the one being asked to do something? Trump was in the driver's seat, not Starmer, nor Macron for that reason, nor Duda. Not a single one of them comes with anything that Trump or the United States needs. When Trump met with Starmer, it was with the whole crowd. Lammy was there and a couple of these British poofs. that the staff, his cabinet, they were there. So it was there was not that private one-on-one meeting. But I was thinking more about, I didn't get to see the arrival, but we did see the arrival with Macron the other day. And there was actually two arrivals. So the first time when he shows up, gets out of the car, he's got his winter coat on, and there's this female staffer there saying, "Oh, hi, Mr. President, welcome." Normal protocol on that would be Trump would be standing out there to greet him. Trump wasn't there. Macron goes in, gets his winter coat off, and apparently thought, "Hey, could we refilm that arrival? Because I wanted for French television, I want to see me getting out of the car, shaking your hand." Trump, "For sure." So went out and they restaged it. So that's why I said I'm not. Now Macron at least got a one-on-one meeting with Trump. Starmer didn't. That probably actually that became apparent right after World War II when the Suez crisis, when the Brits and French got together with the Israelis and tried to take the Suez Canal, and President Eisenhower basically bitch slapped them and said, "Get back in your corner." And they had to get back in the corner. He has not adjusted to the fact that Great Britain ain't great no longer. Just Britain. They are no longer a relevant player on the world stage. From the standpoint of the United States, if we disrupted trade with the UK, the average American wouldn't even notice. Because our top three trading partners we're talking like $760 billion with the Chinese and the Mexicans and the Canadians. They're all up in triple digits. And Great Britain, the total is like 180 billion. It's a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to the $3 trillion of trade, almost, or $2.6 trillion in trade that the United States does with Canada, Mexico, and China. That was when the world would finally clear that Britain was just a support. They were a support actor. It'd be like it would be like having, they once were the lead actor. They were the star. They were the Sean Connery or the Tom Cruise. Now they're the support actor. They're Hopalong Cassidy. There's somebody that shows up to support the main character, but they aren't the main character. And they aren't the main character militarily or economically. Britain's no longer relevant. That's the uncomfortable message for them. I don't think the Trump administration has really thought through the nature of these negotiations. From the Russian perspective, they don't trust the United States. Yeah, are they happy to see Trump saying some of the things that he's been saying? And no NATO for Ukraine, and this war, the Soviets won the World War II. And yeah, they're happy that he's saying that. They're not sure that he actually believes that deep down. The United States got a lot of dirt on its hands, and the Russians haven't forgotten that. And here's Trump. It was stupid on his part, bragging, "Oh yeah, I'm the one that provided those javelins to the that they used to blow up Russian tanks." Keep quiet on that. They didn't win any debating points with the Russians, and the Russians control what's happening on the ground. They are not in a position where they're losing so many troops. Oh, we can't sustain this. Their economy's growing 4.1% minimum, probably closer to 4.7%. Yeah, they've got some inflation, but people's wages are going up. They had the highest number of automobile purchases ever last year. People going out buying new cars, not exactly the signs of a country suffering. And the fact of the matter is, Russia has not mobilized as a nation for war. When you mobilize for war, that means everything else takes a back seat. Fighting the war is the number one priority. The war being waged, the special military operation, is not the number one priority. It's a top priority, but it's shared. It's split among other issues. And they know that Trump he'll be there for 4 more years maximum, assuming he survives in office. When he's gone, then what? So Russia's, and then they got the last, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, now they got 35 years of bad taste in their mouth of how they've been betrayed by the United States repeatedly over and over. It's not Russia that's been trying to subvert the United States. It's been the United States trying to subvert Russia and putting lots of money into that effort, up to and including the all the money USAID has poured into Ukraine, money it was putting into Georgia and Romania in order to shape elections that would be anti-Russian, reported funding, the helping funding of the Chechen war to fight and kill Russians. And Trump and company, I don't think, they don't appreciate that the Russians are saying, look, we've made our negotiating position very clear. Ukraine has got to pull all of its troops out of our new oblasts. Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, Donetsk, pull them out, stop the fighting, elect a new government so we have someone legitimate to talk to, because Zelensky's not legitimate. His violation, your constitution says you only get a 5-year term, and that's it, one term. After that, you no longer run. His term has come and gone, and yet he continues to operate. This was their first date without the chaperone, and appeared to go well. They spent 6.5 hours at the U.S. consulate there in Istanbul, and I suspect the next meeting the Russians will host at maybe their embassy in Ankara or their consulate in Istanbul. They may pick up some other so-called, quote, neutral site. But this is now at the working level, and the focus was, we haven't got a lot of details, but it was said that it was to focus upon getting the diplomatic relations restored back to normal, so that you got a full complement of diplomats, so that each side can have all of their CIA and SVR personnel, staff in the embassy, get back to routine spying, so we can have that up and running once again. But again, the United States is not in a position to fight Russia either. Hell, we can't even handle the Houthis. I was talking with a friend earlier today, and he brought up a point that I hadn't thought of. If you go back and look at what public opinion was in Russia during the war, back when it was the Soviet Union and the war was underway in Afghanistan, you had public protests among the Russian people about that war. And you had really some rancor in the ranks. The soldiers were unhappy. The Russians only lost over a 10-year period like 18,000 people. They've lost 6 times that many in the course of the last 3 years. They got at least 100,000 dead. And yet the Russian people recognize that, hey, this is important to us.
Look, this isn't about, they say, oh, this is support for democracy. Ukraine's not a democracy. It's a dictatorship. Donald Trump got that right. They have jailed political opponents, shut down opposition media, shut down the church, the Eastern Orthodox Church. Look, when you lose Lindsey Graham, when the little lady from South Carolina who's been to Kiev at least 9 times, according to one video I saw, the senator mentioned, and who's been an ardent supporter of Zelensky, when he comes out and says it's time for Zelensky to go, you know that it's gone from nighttime to daytime. It's been a complete reversal. They may have been planning at that point to figure out a way to try to stay involved with Ukraine, but I think Zelensky's behavior was so outrageous that it really pushed not just Donald Trump, it pushed the entire team over the edge. And this isn't about promoting democracy in Ukraine. This is about destroying Russia. This is about taking Russian resources and controlling them by the West. That's what this whole project has been about from the beginning. And that's one of the reasons for such great animus directed at Vladimir Putin, because he basically put a stop to it in July of 2000, called in the oligarchs and said, okay, basically this raping of Russia, it's coming to an end. You're either going to stay out of politics, invest your money in the country, or you can get out, or we'll put you in jail. It's a very stark choice. And as a result of that, today Russia its economy is strong, its people are well fed, well employed. The cities are amazing in terms of their beauty and cleanliness, because they weren't wasting money in foreign military adventures that were killing other people. Europe, I described Europe as a little dog, a chihuahua, with no teeth. They have an annoying bark. They crap all over the floor. But in terms of usefulness and being able to do anything, they're useless. We don't, the United States doesn't need them. This really, I think this is, let's say it's the war between the United States and the European Union. European Union is an artificial creation. You put Russia, France, and Germany combined, they're incapable of taking on Russia. All of Europe is incapable of taking on Russia. It's a pipe dream. Hungary and the Slovak Republic being two of the principal examples. The EU claims it is going to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't even have an army. It doesn't have any military. But we're going to challenge Russia. Good luck with that. You saw Trump even make fun of Starmer in a nice, he did it in a polite way, but they tried to Starmer wanted to get the United States to say, hey, you back us. We get into trouble, you come to our aid. And yeah, you don't need us. You're strong enough on your own. You can take on Russia, can't you? And Starmer was like, he didn't say no, but the answer is no. But they're hoping they're trying to figure out a way that they can trick Donald Trump into getting back in bed with them and go to war with Russia. Trump, I think, has decided, I'm not playing that game, I'm going in a different direction. So the West has created, I would argue, the West has created this, I'll call it the myth of communist subversion, the myth of a Russian subversion, that in order that we build up military resources, and we're the ones involved with going overseas and attacking other countries, not them. That's the story we tell. We create the story that, he's going to recreate the Russian Empire, the Soviet Empire, and implying that he's going to go around the world conquering countries. What was the purpose of this entire Western effort to bring Ukraine into NATO? This wasn't a 1 month plan or a 3 month plan. This has been planned for years. And the United States has been working for years to try to subvert Russia. That's what was fascinating, is the West has always hid behind the justification of going after the Russians because they're subverting our government. Whereas I would argue we've created, I'll call it the myth of Russian subversion, because the Russians they've not been, they didn't need to take over the United States. They've got the largest land mass of any country in the world. They didn't need to take over the United States because they needed our natural resources. They're the number one country in terms of natural resources. They didn't need Lebensraum. They didn't need additional space for their population. Good God. They could easily accommodate the populations of Russia and India in the space, the land that Russia covers. But the West doesn't want to accept it. So we keep pushing it, and people keep believing it and keep dying as a consequence of it.
The United States we've created a narrative in our mind, and it really dominates in the population. It's anti-Russian, number one, and it's anti-Chinese. They are both viewed as enemies. That is the general attitude. They're not viewed as friends and allies. They're not viewed as nations that we share things in common with. I am completely befuddled by the U.S. animus towards both Putin and the Russian people. It was one thing to have these, let's call it the anti-Soviet views, when the Soviet Union was still around. They were communists, they attacked religion. We saw them as being aggressive. Now, I think a lot of that was probably oversold as well by the West. But the birth of the new Russia, the Novorossiya that we have today, it's a nationalist nation, strongly nationalist, great pride in the history of heritage of Russia. But Russia is not seeking to conquer the world. It's not driven by this imperial quest. The West is. Why are we so obsessed with Russia? Russia's got all these resources and we want them. And we've seen that with Lindsey Graham and now Donald Trump with the rare earth minerals we want those too, out of Ukraine. Gimme. And at least Putin and the Russians recognize that they look at the United States like a rapist. This rapist wants to date us. I don't think so. I don't think we're going out, or we're not, at least not going out unchaperoned. If we go out, I'm going out with some guy that's got a gun. So if Mr. Rapist decides to attack me, we can shoot him. For the United States, we've got some economic issues that are coming to bear. Trump is working desperately to cut back the size of the federal government and to really institute some radical changes. We'll see if that succeeds. Courts are blocking him so far, but ultimately gets up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has been overturning these lower court decisions. Every presidential administration, gets into this issue of trying to juggle the foreign policy against the domestic policy, and usually the problems arise overseas that then have an impact domestically. If Trump pulls off a strong economy, again, the deficit's coming down, the dollar is then seen as, being strong again, a solid foundation that people want to come invest in. It will give him more flexibility to operate overseas. Now, the issues overseas are really significant. With respect to the war in Ukraine, Russia's in the driver's seat. With respect to the genocide in Gaza and Palestine by the Zionists, that is problematic. And or recognize that whatever attack they launch against Iran will elicit an immediate retaliation, and one that would be very devastating to Israel, but perhaps completely destructive to Israel. Now, on the other hand, Bibi Netanyahu, again, he's got a bit of Trumpitis too, where he says a lot of things. He talks a lot of smack in public, but then ultimately ends up on something backing down or not pursuing. So they've talked about attacking Iran, but you have to step back. Why haven't they? Well, the reason they haven't is because they don't have the military capability to do, nor is it going to be the same. That's what Germany faces. It has broken the relationship, that glass that was the relationship between Russia and Germany. That's broken. Before, you go back 3 years before the start of the special military operation, there were Siemens, for example, was making critical machinery, turbine engines and such for Russia. And Russia was happy to buy them, and in exchange was providing cheap gas and oil that was allowing Siemens to operate and make a profit. So, yeah, I'm sure Germany, there are some in Germany that, man, can we get back together? But it's not going to be the same relationship. The pristine glass is broken. It can be pieced back together perhaps, but it's not going to be the same as it was before. Then when the sanctions were imposed and they cut off that relationship with Russia, and left the Russians in a quandary. What do? And they said, we'll build our own. We got the smarts, we got the resources. It wasn't like the Germans had some sort of magic sauce. Oh, you got to have that secret sauce to put on it, or otherwise it doesn't work. So all of a sudden now Russia is producing internally what it used to buy from the Germans. So let's say they go back and say, okay, yeah, we'll reconnect the lines, but they're not going to go back to the economic relationship they had before. Again, with the number of Audis, Mercedes, Volkswagen that were being sold in Russia was significant. BMW. I know firsthand about BMW's efforts to counter the smuggling of cars from the United States that were being sent to Russia and then being resold. It was costing BMW a lot of money, but now they've turned to China and to internal brands. The Russians used to build pretty crappy cars. Not anymore. The other thing is that what Trump's trying to do with Russia, and it has strong support, bipartisan support, is the reverse Nixon. Remember Nixon in 1972 went to China, opened up relations with China in order to split them off from Russia, in order that we could pit China against Russia. Because from the United States looked at it strategically, you never want Russia and China in any kind of partnership or alliance, because then the United States cannot match that. That's exactly what Joe Biden ended up creating, an alliance between Russia and China that, while, Russia and Chinese have had problems in the past, but not now. The relationship between Putin and Xi is genuine, it's real, and they are not just swapping bottles of vodka for tea or whatever when they get together. They're actually reaching deals, and they're doing tangible economic projects, and their number of Chinese cars sold in Russia has soared, displaced what used to be sold by US and European car manufacturers. Again, the United States If I'm the Chinese listening to the United States, you think you're talking to a crazy person. They're schizophrenic. One minute they're saying, oh man, we want to be friends with the Chinese, BFFs, we want to get along. And the next minute, hey, we're sanctioning you. You're an empire trying to take over. We're talking about going to war with them. So the Chinese are saying, you think these crazy people are going to go to war with us? We're going to get ready to go to war. The deepening relationships there, and that's where Trump is trying to see if he can. They genuinely believe that, oh, Russia doesn't really like China. We'll cut them a better deal. No, that's not going to happen. I try to tell people that. They don't want to listen.